Meanwhile, at a distance, he sees the enemy firing. He runs through the forest and learns his ability to teleport. The Turkish army has surrounded the Transylvania castle and they are firing non-stop. Vlad arrives at the castle and assures the people that he will protect them and the enemy will be defeated soon. The enemies now breach the front gate of the castle. Vlad turns into a vampire and runs through the Turkish army, destroying anyone coming in front of him. He teleports from one location to another and defeats all that is standing in front of him. His countrymen are shocked and in disbelief by this outcome. He says that no one should ask him how he can defeat an army, but they should believe that he will keep them safe. He orders everyone to leave for the Kozia monastery, where cannon fire from Turks will not reach. Mahmud learns that Vlad has defeated 1,000 of their men. He orders 100,000 men to go after Vlad, and Mahmud himself will lead this time. Vlad sees the oncoming Turks and plans to defeat them within 3 days. Vlad is now feeling the effects of extreme thirst for human blood. He gets a vision where the vampire tells him to feed, but Vlad restrains himself.
What is it?
In the forest, a shady man who knows about Vlad's dark powers offers his blood and wants to be Vlad's apprentice, but Vlad refuses to feed. He again hears the whisper telling him to feed. Mahmud meets one of his injured soldiers, who says that Prince Vlad has a message for him. The Sultan looks ahead and finds the bodies of his dead soldiers placed on stakes. Meanwhile, Vlad's wife notices that Vlad's silver ring is burning his flesh, and when she touches it, it doesn't do anything to her. Also, Vlad's battle scars are gone. She asks what is going on with him. He explains that he has now become the creature from the mountain that everyone fears. To prove this, he makes a hole in the curtain and the sunlight burns his flesh. He tells her that he chose this to defend Transylvania against the enemy. He asks his wife to continue the journey to the monastery, and he will join them after sundown. The Turks are observing this from a distance. They ambush the Transylvanians in the middle of their journey and start to slaughter them. Vlad comes flying through the forest and takes down the Turks. Vlad's wife and son are surrounded. The enemy hears a whooshing sound from behind. He turns, but nothing is there. This time, he is scared. Suddenly, Vlad comes in front of him, and he falls down the cliff. Vlad's people finally reach the monastery. Back at the cliff, we see that the enemy soldier didn't fall all the way and is hanging from tree roots. Mahmud hears from his man that Prince Vlad has become a monster, and Mahmud's soldiers are now afraid of him. According to him, men cannot fear what they cannot see, so he orders his soldiers to use a blindfold while going to battle. Meanwhile, while walking, Vlad avoids being exposed to the sunlight. This is being noticed by one of the priests. He follows Vlad and flashes a shining silver sword at him. He wants to kill Vlad before he becomes a full vampire. He cuts a hole in the curtain and sunlight burns Vlad's face. Everyone sees that and says the rumor about Vlad becoming a monster is true. They ignite the building and try to burn him inside. The building starts burning and everyone hears Vlad screaming. A cloud of dark smoke rises from the house and covers the sunlight. Suddenly, they hear a growl and Vlad is coming out of the house. He is almost unharmed. He tells everyone that they are only alive because of him, and because of what he has done to save them. He orders everyone back to their duties. Meanwhile, the Turkish army arrives at the canyon just below the monastery. Bats from all over the nearby area are gathering at the monastery and Vlad can control them. Vlad sends all of them towards the enemy soldiers and crushes them. Vlad spots Mahmud and flies towards him. Transylvanians now shoot fire arrows at the Turkish soldiers. Vlad is about to claw Mahmud, but it's an imposter dressed like him. Meanwhile, a few Turkish soldiers climb from behind the monastery and go after Vlad's wife and son. The soldiers corner them at the edge of the monastery and push Vlad's wife. She is barely holding on from the edge. Vlad flies back to the monastery to rescue them. Seeing him fly, everyone is shocked. Vlad manages to save Janissaries, but his wife loses grip and she falls to the ground. Vlad flies after her but is not able to save her. This gives Mahmud's men the opportunity to capture Janissaries and take him with them. Half the Turkish army goes to the monastery and slaughters the Transylvanians. Vlad's wife asks him to drink her blood, to gain the full potential of his powers, and to stop the Turks once and for all. Just as he drinks the blood, the vampire from the cave becomes free from the condemnation, and is able to walk outside. Vlad returns and sees none of his men standing. He asks if they want vengeance, and they agree. Vlad feeds them his blood to turn them. He then goes inside the room where he kept his old armor and puts it on. He says a final goodbye to his wife and gets ready for battle. Meanwhile, the Sultan's minister looks towards the east and notices that the sun hasn't risen that day. The sky is filled with thunder and lightning. They spot Vlad coming towards them. Suddenly, Vlad and his vampire army go after every Turkish soldier that comes in front of them. This time it's the Turks that get slaughtered. Vlad goes after the one responsible for his wife's death. He then goes after Mahmud, but this time Mahmud comes prepared. He is flashing a silver sword and the room's floor is filled with silver coins. Although Vlad is facing discomfort, he starts fighting with Mahmud. The silver is making him weaker and burning his flesh. Mahmud cuts open a silver coin bag hanging from the ceiling, and coins fall on Vlad. Vlad is screaming with pain, and this allows the Sultan to knock him out. Mahmud plans to put a stake through Vlad's heart and kill him, but Vlad stops him. Vlad quickly turns into vampire form and puts the stake through the Sultan's heart. Vlad says that he is now to be known as Dracula, the son of the devil. He then bites Mahmud on the neck and drains his blood. He takes his son to safety, but the other vampires are sensing a live one among them, and they all come after him. Vlad kills one of them and puts him on a stake. But all the remaining vampires are still after his son. Suddenly, the priest from before comes there holding a cross, and all the vampires are weakened by it. He asks Vlad to give his son to him, and Vlad realizes that his son will be safe with the priests. The priest takes his son away from the vampires. Vlad now uses his power to remove the clouds from the sky and sunlight is coming through. It hits the vampires and they all burn down to ashes. Vlad is also burning and falling apart, but he doesn't burn completely. Indras becomes the new king of Transylvania. Back at the battleground, the man we saw before recovers Vlad's body and feeds him his blood. Since Vlad is an immortal vampire, his wounds start to heal and he wakes up. A couple hundred years have passed by since then. While traveling through a city, Vlad notices a woman who looks just like his wife. He says hi to her, and says a line from a poem that his wife liked all those years ago. But shockingly, the poem is also a favorite of this woman. They both feel a connection with each other. Meanwhile, we see a man with long nails sitting nearby. As the camera moves, we see that it is the master vampire from the cave.